Okay. Go ahead and take a screenshot of the screen today. These are the graphics that we will be using and topics that we will be covering today. As always, it's time for you to have your deep cleansing breaths. You are actually regulating your emotion system by doing that. You're also sending notifications to the prefrontal cortex that you're getting ready to learn. And you're sending notifications to the hippocampus too, that you are going to put in new information as well as potentially draw some information as well when you're answering the questions for today and participating fully with your whole complete brain. On the count of three, we're going to inhale and exhale 3 deep breaths. 1, 2, 3. Good morning, Lola. Ensure that you water for today. Your brain is 75% water and it needs hydration. You slept overnight, and while you were resting, your body was still being high functioning and doing what it needed to do to ensure that you could rest, hopefully peacefully. So ensure that you have water. The more you start to use your brain, you will find that you are more thirsty. And when you say, I'm thirsty, you're already 2% dehydrated. I am Dr. Donna Thomas-Rodgers. I'm the daughter of Leslie Darnell Thomas, granddaughter of Arthur Jethro Evelyn II, and great-granddaughter of Levi Thomas. Welcome to your morning mental workout. Today is Wired Wednesday, and I've been speaking about emotional regulation. It comes up quite often in our daily lives. So today I decided let's wire our brains for emotional regulations. Let's understand it completely so that we can use it in all of its totality. So what is the definition of emotional regulation? It refers to the brain's ability to monitor, evaluate, modify emotional reactions in adaptive ways, especially in challenging or triggering situations. So that means back in the day when someone stepped on my new sneakers and I popped off, I did not have emotional regulation. Found myself in verbal, potentially physical altercations. So my emotions were not regulated. You stepped on, like in the movie Do the Right Thing, you stepped on my Air Jordans, you stepped on my Adidas, we're going to have a problem. So that's emotional deregulation or heightened sense of hypervigilance. So I'm like, I'm looking for a fight. You don't want that, because if the amygdala is in charge, as I've started mentioning last week, imagine a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old running anything. Because you have the right amygdala, which is the 3-year-old, and the left amygdala, which is the 5-year-old, and they're large and in charge. They're making decisions on behalf of all the adults and all the situations happening. One of them potentially could still be in pull-ups, but they are making decisions, even though they still have some of their taste buds on the outside of their face, but they're in charge. That's what happens when you let your amygdalas run your life. Okay, so you really want prefrontal cortex in control. You want the amygdalas down here in the temporal lobe to do what they do, but don't let them be in charge. That is the purpose of today's live. So again, a more detailed definition of emotional regulation is the process by which you recognize your emotions, manage the intensity and duration of those emotions, and respond in socially acceptable, goal-directed ways. So me having a steel bat and a tire iron was not the way to respond socially or acceptable, even if I was in the hood. That was not the way to respond. I was reacting. I was letting my right amygdala be large and in charge, and that was no brainer. Okay? So here are the key brain regions. So what questions do you have, if any, about emotional regulation? That means you're going to be cool as the other side of the pillow. And if it is clear, let me know that it is clear, and I will move on. But you are calm, cool, and collected. That's what emotional regulation is, and I will get into it. It doesn't mean don't feel. So if you think I'm saying don't feel, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying regulate how you feel. Okay, here are the key brain regions involved in emotional regulation. Number 1, we have the amazing prefrontal cortex, the homie of all homies. It's just running everything. The executive function resides there. So the function with regards to emotional regulation is this: executive control. Your executive function is located in your prefrontal cortex, and that's the CEO of the whole brain. And the command center of the body is the brain. So you want your executive function functioning. And it helps with impulse regulation because inhibition control is located in the executive function, and emotion evaluation. So what happens is something takes place and the amygdala say, hey, they over here tripping. So if you have a strong prefrontal cortex, then the prefrontal cortex will say, thank you, amygdala. We got it. We'll take it from here. Go sit down. Here's your binky. Take a nap. And then the prefrontal cortex will assess what's taking place. But if you have a weak prefrontal cortex and a strong amygdala, you is going to listen to your right amygdala and you're going to pop off. So that is the opposite of emotional regulation. That's why it's so important that you strengthen your prefrontal cortex. Next is the amygdala. So it does detect emotional salience, and basically emotional salience is things that grab your attention and influence what you're getting ready to do, especially fear or threat. So if we're all sitting here and we hear a loud boom, like that's your emotional salience. Like, what the hell was that? Oh my goodness, what's going on? And then it'll say, hey, amygdala, is that a fear? Is that a threat? What's taking place? And then the prefrontal cortex will say, that's just Dr. Donna saying boom on a live. Chill out. Enjoy class. Okay. Next is the anterior cingulate cortex, and it monitors conflict. It helps with attention and emotional control. So it says, calm down. That was just Dr. Donna making a loud noise for a point of inference to prove a point that that's what emotional salience is. It's okay. Chill out. Next is the hippocampus, and this is contextual memory of emotional experiences. Now, if you keep hearing boom, 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 like with PTSD and things like that, me smelling something, then my hippocampus is going to say, ooh, you about to have to clean something. Remember in basic training when y'all had to clean and drill sergeants messed up the bathroom again because it wasn't clean? And then that's what's going to show up. And so that is why you have to keep this strong prefrontal cortex. So you could tell the hippocampus and the amygdala and the ACC, look, you are in your own house. The drill sergeants aren't here anymore. You became a commissioned officer. You then outranked the drill sergeants. They retired probably before you even left the military or very close to it. So chill out. And then you have the vagus nerve. And this helps calm the body. So it's linked to the parasympathetic regulation. And we know that the parasympathetic regulation is rest and digest. So it is responding to relaxation and recovery. So you want the vagus nerve to be there, be strong, so they can say, woosah, calm down. That's why you download a meditation app or breathing app, or you have someone that you follow on a social media platform, so that when somebody steps on your sneakers, when you hear that loud noise, when you're in traffic and somebody cuts you off, you calm down. Those are the regions that are involved. Again, the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, the anterior cingulate cortex, the insula, the hippocampus, and the vagus nerve. Now, here are the types of emotional regulation. Number one, cognitive reappraisal. That means reframing a situation to alter its emotional impact. That's what you have to do, reframing. I was having a conversation with Nola yesterday, and we needed to reframe some things. So the first thing you're going to do is say, the person didn't step on your shoe on purpose. You put the sneaker spray on it, so that scratch is going to come out. Go ahead and get you a diaper wipe or a furniture wipe or something to get it off and move on. It's okay. The person just accidentally bumped into you. It was not on purpose. Next is suppression. So inhibiting outward emotional expression. So inhibiting it. There are times when someone says something on the live in the comments, and I am suppressing my whole, what I would potentially say. So if you think about old school shows where the person would be looking at you and then the cloud would appear and they break the fourth wall and have a conversation with you to tell you what's going on in your head, that's an example of suppression. So you have this outward expression. When I was at Frito-Lay and Mark was on cocaine, and he acted a fool, got into a fight with Francesca, tried to hit me with a warehouse door, called me a black bitch. I had to do suppression because I needed to be a thermostat in that situation, calm everything down, suspend them, and then handle their termination thereafter for the physical altercation that they enacted or participated in. Next is distractions. So shifting focus away from the emotional trigger. So again, someone steps on my shoe Now, instead of me looking at the shoe, I just go into deep breathing. Let me breathe. Let me count my blessings. Let me be in a gratitude moment. But whatever I do, don't go to the car and get now a rubber mallet or the tire iron. It's too hard to get to the tire iron. So I'll never mind. Don't go to the car and get any piece of equipment in the car and punch somebody or do, grapple, put them in a chokehold. Don't do that. Go ahead and think of something else. Distract yourself. Breathe, drink some water, calm down. In Al-Anon, we say sit on your hands, but do something else other than what you would normally do. Next is acceptance. Allowing emotions without judgment or resistance. You do have the right to use our process, which is what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? And what am I going to do about it? So you get to feel the feeling. If you are angry, you get to say, I'm angry, I'm pissed off, I'm frustrated, I'm sad, I'm lethargic, I'm melancholy, I'm a little disappointed right now. I'm infuriated. You get to feel the feelings, but you don't stay in those feelings because you say, what am I feeling? What am I getting ready? Why am I feeling it? And what am I getting ready to do about it? So don't resist it, because then if you suppress it forever, now you're going to pop off somewhere else and it's going to be like a volcano, and then you're going to turn into Pompeii, and then hot lava is going to go and start harming other people. So you want to feel the feelings as in the moment or as quickly to the moment as possible. And then problem solving, addressing the cause of the feelings directly. And that is the whole method. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? And what am I going to do about it? Next is neuroscience insight. When you strengthen emotional regulation, you are enhancing neuroplasticity. And we're all about neuroplasticity over here because this is taking place in the prefrontal cortex. And what I learned in my class today is it's also taking place in the temporal lobe and the hippocampus, because that's where learning resides as well. And then it's connectivity between the amygdala located in the temporal lobe and the prefrontal cortex. And I have said this many a times. This needs to send a message here through synaptic connection neuroplasticity. And then this is what's responsible for making decisions, because you are in your rational mind. Cognition, working memory, personality, problem solving, decision making, day-to-day operations all happens here. Over here, the amygdala's job is to just notify you that a threat or fear is taking place. It's an emotional, hey, listen, it's an alarm. So do not let this start doing this job, because if you start letting this do the decision making, this is how you end up saying and doing things that you will regret in the future. And then the vagal tone, which supports calmness and resilience. And what we talked about with the vagal tone is that it's the body's region, and it helps you to associate it with emotion regulation and social connection and relaxation. So it's the vagal tone, which is next to the vagus nerve, which we talked about before. So it's all about this regulation. It's all about being calm. It's all about being cool. It's all about being relaxed the entire time. So that's how it sounds in my head most of the time. It's a lot going on, but it's really at this pace and this tone. A whole bunch of inputs happening. But just think of me like an air traffic controller. So I have planes landing and taking off. So there's information coming in, information going out, and I'm as cool as the other side of the pillow. So those are the neuroscience insights: neuroplasticity, connectivity, and then the vagal tone, which supports calmness and resilience. Now, here are some brain-based activities to strengthen emotional regulations, and I have 2 sets, and we'll get to the end. Some of these will be repeated again. So mindful breathing. Mindful breathing increases your prefrontal cortex's control over the amygdala. Mindful breathing. If you have not downloaded a breathing or meditation app, and you don't already have a meditation practice, and you haven't found somebody online, if you need a physical person to help you with it, you are wrong, because you are weakening your prefrontal cortex by not doing it, and you are strengthening your amygdala. And that is no bueno. Again, you don't want the amygdala running the rest of your brain. So as soon as this live is over, and if you have the ability to do it now, search for a meditation app, write a note, send a reminder to yourself. But today is the day. Meditation, breathing, mindful app, some sort of something to give you a place where when you are in your default mode network, that's anytime you're by yourself, you are present and self-reflecting. You're not doing mind wandering, and you're not daydreaming, and you're not ruminating over something that you saw somewhere or you had your own experience. So you are calming down both the left and right amygdala with your mindful breathing, and it gives the prefrontal cortex control over the amygdala. Next is labeling the emotions. So it reduces the amygdala activation, and it boosts self-awareness. So what am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? And what am I getting ready to do about it? You are labeling the feelings. But if you don't do that, the amygdala it can't process what's happening. Just everything shows up as anger, but you might be frustrated. You might be sleepy. You might be hangry, sleepy, the shout, sleepy, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Shout is what we use in 12-step programs. So you could be one of those things and not know it, and it just all feels like anger. What I have found with my daughter is that we actually have a PDF sheet that we use for her, because if you don't even know what feelings are, you can't even identify them. So you have no idea what you're feeling. Most people have the 5. I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm angry, and I'm lonely, and I'm tired, and that's it. But there are so many other feelings that you can actually be experiencing. And if it's the first time, euphoric. If this is the first time feeling these feelings, confused, bumfuzzled, vacillating back and forth, because you can't. Indecision is a feeling. So you have these feelings that are there, but if you don't identify them, if you don't label them, then you can't do anything about them because you don't know what they are. So an AI format, ChatGPT or Grok, you can ask them if you identify that you're feeling melancholy. Like, what the hell is that? You can look it up, you can research it, and then ask Chat for ways to identify it in the future and for yourself personally, what you can do when you have a feeling that you don't want to feel. That's why it's what am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? What am I going to do about it? If you like that feeling, now you have a strategy to keep having that feeling. But if you don't like that feeling, when that feeling shows up, you implement the strategy for that feeling so it comes and it leaves. And as I have stated many times, feelings are just indicators. If you think about the dashboard of any vehicle, there are notifications. Change the oil, tire pressure, need some gas, going too fast. Here's the temperature. Here's the temperature. And so feelings are the same way. They just came to notify you of something that's taking place. And once you address them, guess what happens? They leave. Next is writing. So gratitude writing. So it activates positive emotion networks and it builds resilience. So it makes you understand. As we said, thank you is linked to gratitude as well. Okay, gratitude is linked to thank you, and it does build resilience for you from I'm not feeling that, this is just happening. I am feeling it, but it's happening and it's not the end of the world. Amygdala, sit down, be humble. Cognitive reappraisal. So this engages the prefrontal cortex and it weakens this automatic fear response that happens in the amygdala. Oh my goodness, I smell some pine oil. What's happening? I'm all the way back in 1990, June of 1990 at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. No, you're not. You are standing in the middle of Sprouts and somebody's cleaning the bathroom. Calm down, get your grapes, and leave. That's what you could do, Dr. Donna. And then finally, so you're strengthening it. Every time you identify the feeling, why you're feeling it, and you have a strategy for it, you use your frontal lobe, and that's making you stronger. So think of it this way. If you go to the gym and you keep doing arm exercises, guess what's going to happen? You're going to start having lats and deltoids and shoulder muscles and everything else. But if you sit your ass on the couch and do nothing and eat bonbons, you're going to become fat, get diabetes, gout, and everything else. So every time you say, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? What I'm getting ready to do about it? You are exercising the prefrontal cortex, and it is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And this is getting weaker or regulated, so it only does the job that it was designed to do. And the final one is cold exposure. It strengthens the vagal tone and emotional control. And so what happens is now, because you are doing a cold exposure, and I'll get to what that is. Basically, you could just if you're in the shower, before you get out the shower, turn the cold water on, or you could put your face, submerge it. There are people on videos, TikTok, that putting their face in ice water. They're doing it on reels as well. That's cold exposure. And so it helps with emotional control as well. Because, usually like, woo, it's cold. Ah! But if you do it enough, then it's like, yeah, it ain't that cold. So just like being in Vegas, because it's hot, I mean, as long as it's not, I mean, one day we were out, I think it was 92 degrees. I was like, yeah, it ain't even that hot today. It's only 92 degrees. So we good. We get this done. What about 108 is when it really starts. You're like, yeah, it's hot. By 115, 120, you're like, okay, it's hot. And it's because I've been here for so long now. If it gets 65, I'm like, ooh, it's a little cold outside. Let me grab a jacket. So it's in the reverse. Okay, so what questions do you have about the types of emotional regulation, the insights for it, or the initial brain-based activities for it? And I will, hopefully YouTube will not kick me out, but you can look at the top graphic so that you can see the emotional regulation and also the 5 brain-based habits for better emotional regulation. On the left, you have the breathing, the label, what you feel, reframing the situation. They say journaling, gratitude. I say writing. Too many people talking about journaling right now. And cold showers or your face dunks. So again, as I mentioned, at the end of your shower, turn the cold water on 30 seconds, and that'll just get enough to be able to regulate that. Okay. Do you have any questions or responses to it? All right. Okay. Next, we have, what are the neurological challenges to emotional regulation? I'm glad you asked, Nola. Here are the challenges. Neurological challenges to emotional regulation arise when key brain regions, network, or neurochemicals are disrupted or underdeveloped. These challenges can reduce a person's ability to control impulses, interpret emotional signals, or return to a calm baseline after stress. So here we have it. Here are the neurological challenges. Number 1, hyperactive amygdala. And so what happens is exaggerated fear or threat responses, you have difficulty calming down. You have difficulty calming down. And so what happens is the key brain or neural factors involved are overactivation of the amygdala with weak prefrontal amygdala regulation. So when your amygdala is hypervigilant and is popping off and acting crazy and you can't calm down, you find yourself mad and angry for multiple days, it is because your prefrontal cortex is not strong enough to say, sit down, toddler, be quiet. If you're ever in the store and you see toddlers just running around acting a fool and the parents don't know what to do, they keep saying 1, 2, 3, all eyes on me, 5, that's a challenge, and the kid is like, I don't give a fuck about none of that. That's what's happening with you and your amygdala. Next, underactive prefrontal cortex. So you have poor impulse control and weak reappraisal ability. And what this does is it's reduced function in the dorsolateral and the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. So because you haven't said, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling? And what am I about to do about it? That means that you are ruminating and still activating the fight, flight, freeze, or fear response to what's actually taking place. And so the amygdala is still amygdalin, and the strength is not there for the prefrontal cortex. And then you could have a low vagal tone, and so that's your inability to switch from stress to calm, and it's dysregulated in your heart rate. So now what's happening is you're having all this boom, 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 boom. How you sense it? And so all of this is happening, and so the body is trying to comfort itself, and it's just shutting down, and nothing is going right. And so this dysfunction in the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic nervous system, and the parasympathetic nervous system is about rest and digest and peace and calm. And that can't happen. And it's like, I can't shift from this. I don't know. I can't calm down. What's happening? And so that is why it is taking place. And I got some stuff, more activities for you to be able to do so you can calm down. Next is the anterior cingulate cortex, and it becomes dysfunctional too. And so you have difficulty monitoring the emotions or resolving the internal conflict. And this disrupted error and monitoring and emotional processing. So you can't process what's taking place because you're so mad, you're so pissed off, you're so sad, you're so grief and all this, you just can't do anything And so this conflict that you have going on, you can't even get to what am I feeling, why am I feeling it, and what am I getting ready to do about it. Next is the impaired Insula function. And so this reduces self-awareness and emotional integration. Again, if you're shutting off access to your prefrontal cortex, this is where your personality resides, cognition and everything. And so you just can't make sense of the situation. And it weakens your interception awareness and feelings of emotions in your body. So now even in your default mode network, you can't regulate what's taking place, and it's just emotional chaos. Now, if you have hippocampal damage or shrinkage, you'll have trouble contextualizing emotions or recalling past emotional learning. And so what happens is you have weak memory emotion integration. So you can't even remember when you felt like this and what you did about it. So it just really just stops everything. Next is neurochemical imbalances, and this is emotional volatility, mood swings, or flat effect. And we talked about being emotionally flat yesterday, or it was keep your word. No, that was in the brain tip yesterday. That's what it was. So yeah, basically being at an emotional state where you can't feel anything. You're just protecting yourself and being emotionally numb. So what happens is there's also neurochemical imbalances, and that's emotional volatility, mood swings, or flat effect. And what happens is low serotonin, low dopamine, and low GABA levels. And the GABAs are the neurotransmitters that are the inhibitory transmitters. And what they do is they stop the excitatory behavior. And we talked about that when we were talking about synaptic connections. And so in your executive function, your inhibition control, those that when you don't do something, when you don't go to the car and get the bat, when you don't punch somebody, when you don't yell or curse, that means that the GABAs have said, don't do that, don't do that. But if you aren't able to access that, then you're going to have low GABAs, and the low GABAs is going to be sitting there like, okay, go ahead. And you're not going to, they're not going to override the excitement of the right amygdala. And next thing you know, somebody's in a chokehold, or you yelling, cursing, or just sitting somewhere like, I'm not going to do anything, because you could also freeze. Next is the poor default mode network regulation. And that means that you start overthinking, ruminating, or emotional flooding. Now you're crying, you're just saying this don't make no sense. And with rumination, remember, there is no solution to rumination. None. There is absolutely no solution to it. You just keep thinking the same thoughts over and over. And the ACC and the Insula jump in as the hype man. Yeah, that's a problem, ain't it, man? That sucks. You right. Woo, Lord. How long they been doing this? Forever. Whoa, man, it's just terrible. It's just... And so you really just sitting there now in the funk. You ain't moving. You can't, you're just really not being able to say, let me get out of this situation. And so it's a lack of task positive network engagement. And so there is no reframing. There is no, hey, I've gotten through tougher times than this, and everything is just all bad. So so basically, again, let me just review. So the neurological challenges to emotional regulations: a hyperactive amygdala, an underactive prefrontal cortex, that's no bueno. Low vagal tone, your ACC is in dysfunction mode. You have an impaired Insula function. If you're going to have hippocampal damage or shrinkage, that means that what you recall to be able to do in situations you can't. Neurochemical imbalance, which means low serotonin, low dopamine, and the GABA levels are low too. And then finally, poor default mode network regulation. So even when you by yourself, you still aren't going, you're just going to be an emotional wreck. So what questions do you have about the neurological challenges to emotional regulation? And if you have none, just say no questions, and we can keep it moving. And yes, I will do a summary at the end, Nola, if you're about to ask that. Questions, if any, or is it clear? No questions. Okay. We are discussing emotional regulation within the brain. I teach adults how the brain functions so that they can use it to become their best. If this is a topic that interests you, feel free to stay. If you are here for any other reason, feel free to leave. Okay. Next is common conditions where these challenges are present. So the conditions of emotional deregulation or the neurological challenges, where does this exist? I'm glad you asked, Lola. It exists in ADHD. So you have a delayed prefrontal cortex development and low emotional inhibition. So you are not going to have regulated emotions naturally if you have ADHD. If you have PTSD, like myself, you have a hyperactive amygdala and reduced hippocampal volume. So the hippocampus memory is not saying, hey, we overcame that. Remember, we're not doing that anymore. So I definitely, when I'm having a PTSD moment, have to go and calm myself down and regulate the moment that's actually taking place. Next, if you have any anxiety disorders, excessive threat detection, or poor vagal regulation. Depression. So you have low prefrontal cortex and serotonin activity and a poor default mode network. So people that are depressed, this is weak as hell. There's no serotonin being released. And when you are alone in your default mode network, you do not have control. You are not saying, oh, I'm getting ready to do this and reflecting. You are ruminating in the left amygdala. And that is why the depression loop keeps happening. And then the basal ganglia just keeps saying, oh, you depressed? Okay, cool. Let me send all of the depression behaviors and habits over to you because you're in depressed mode right now. Next is autism spectrum disorder. So atypical insula, amygdala, and social emotional processing, and then bipolar disorder. So dysregulation in the limbic system and prefrontal cortex connectivity. So if you see somebody that's bipolar and you're saying, why the fuck did they just do that? Because this connectivity ain't connecting. And that's why what they doing don't make no damn sense. Okay. To answer your question, money does not cause depression. Money is an inanimate object. So money cannot cause depression in and of itself. It's just sitting there. It's an inanimate object. Human beings, unaccountable human beings are the reason why you are emotional or depressed about money. Okay, now we have experts that have entered the building. The terrible food is not what causes these issues. The lack of neuroconnectivity is what causes most of these issues. You can have a healthy diet and still have a atrophied brain. So that is incorrect. Okay. And at this point, I'm going to move on. So, got it. So see, all right, what I am going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm going to show you what negativity bias and external anxiety does by the comments section today. So I'm going to use this as a coaching opportunity. So we have some new people because there is no holiday in August and people don't know what to do. They don't know how to anchor themselves. And so what happens is people start doom scrolling and they're looking for external stimuli, as I've said. So we have people who are questioning what I'm saying and telling me that money is the reason why they're depressed. No, it's the food, when they have been programmed for both of those answers and have not done thorough research to find out if any of what they have said is actually factually based. So now, because I engaged with one person, this they believe is an opportunity for them to jump in and say their negativity bias, conformity bias, cognitive dissonance, opinions that are in fact not even their own because they didn't learn how to use their brain. So the rhetoric in which they are typing is an automatic response to what the stimuli is that they believe that they actually heard. And so if you see the comments, I will not read them so that the people who watch the replay won't have to listen to what it is that they're saying, but they're actually saying rhetoric that was given to them, that based upon their own personal beliefs, conformity bias and cognitive bias, conformity bias as well as confirmation bias. They need to hear that this morning because of the hypervigilance. I need to find something negative. So their emotions are deregulated. This is a perfect example of deregulated emotions. And because of the rumination that's taking place in the left amygdala, they believe that the things that they are typing are actually correct. They are missing an opportunity to create new neurons that fire and wire in order for them to have a new neuroplasticity, a new neural pathway, so that they don't have to be wired to what they are currently wired to. And so Bye Brandon wants to believe that it's in the food. Someone else wants to believe that it's related to money, and they are unwilling to actually open their mind to understand that it's actually them. Okay. All right, so I'm going to continue on. It would be great if you all would leave because I'm finished and I'm going to continue on because you missed the whole point. Because now what's taking place is your amygdala right here in your temporal lobe is hijacked. And so as a result, you're going to double down on what you're saying and not listen to what I'm saying. Because what you haven't done is asked me why I'm saying what I'm saying. What you haven't done is said neurologically, how can I think different in this situation? And so your cognitive dissonance is there. And although you want to listen to me, you also want to be right about what you're saying. And those two things cannot coexist. You can't learn about the brain and not use the brain at the same time. That's just impossible. It is impossible to do. And what I will say is any information that you've gathered from someone else is not the information that I am presenting to you today. What I am presenting to you today is to learn how your brain functions. You all have demonstrated that you are not emotionally regulated. And instead of gathering pen and paper or some writing utensil, you have decided that you are going to continue to do this because you feel like you need this platform. And so I'm going to continue, and I would prefer it. Treat people with dignity and respect is one of the 74 principles of real leadership. So what I would like to do is you came to my live and disrupted my live. So if you'd like to have this conversation, you can have it with someone else. Okay? All right. So the neuroscience insight is emotional regulation. So for the regular students, we're going to not pay attention to anything else that they're saying, and we're going to move on. So neuroscience insight. Emotional regulation isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about strengthening the neural bridge between survival, the amygdala, and strategy with the prefrontal cortex. So when you have the amygdala and you are connected to it, you are going to strengthen the prefrontal cortex and allow the amygdala to do what it came here to do. And that's going to create emotional regulation. And so I'll flip back to my chart. And if you look at, oh no, I did, oh yes, okay. So if you look at the top right chart in the 4, the one on the right, that's the neurological chemical changes to emotional regulation. And that's the hyperactive amygdala, the underactive prefrontal cortex, the low vagal tone, the anterior cingulate cortex dysfunction, and the impaired insula, the hippocampal damage, and the neurochemical imbalances that take place. All right, so how do you strengthen your emotional regulation? Lola, I am glad that you asked that. And so here's how it takes place. You need to train the brain circuits that manage emotional control, self-awareness, and psychological calming. This involves enhancing the prefrontal cortex, the vagus nerve, and the insula, and the connectivity with the amygdala, alongside of the neurochemical balances and body awareness. So this is how you do it. Okay. Okay. So what I would like to say is my objective was to give those people who actually had emotional deregulation an opportunity to listen to what I was saying. But because of their weak amygdalas, they couldn't do it. And I demonstrated that, and I let that happen on purpose, because what I am showing you is that when someone's amygdala is running their life, they can't hear you. They cannot hear anything that you are saying. They cannot hear what you are saying at all. At all. They cannot hear what you are saying. And so as a result of that, you don't engage. Because what will happen is if you attempt to engage, if you try to convince them that they need to weaken their amygdala and strengthen their prefrontal cortex, you will then start experiencing external anxiety. And notice how they started talking to each other and back and forth simply because negativity bias. And you have to look for confirmation bias says, I can't hear anything but what I'm actually looking for. And so if I'm looking for, I'm hypervigilant and I'm looking for a dopamine boost externally, I got to keep looking for it until I find it, until I get my fix. And so in that moment, as they kept going back and forth, once I finished my point, the reason why they have been removed from the live is because, number one, I said treat people with dignity and respect. Respect my live. That didn't happen. And so you can give people a grace period to see if they're actually going to listen, because I don't show up in anybody's feed without by coincidence. There are no coincidences. They were here, and all of them have emotional deregulation, and none of them could hear what I was saying, and now none of them have access to it, and that's unfortunate for them, but we're going to continue on. And so and I was hoping that they could stay on long enough to find out how to strengthen their emotions so that they wouldn't have to have those neurological experiences, obviously to no avail, so they no longer have access to what's taking place. So again, here is how you can strengthen your emotional regulation. Number one, mindful breathing. And I said that mindful breathing. And I said that at the beginning, to get a meditation app, a downloaded breathing app, or find someone on social media that resonates with you. And what it does is it activates the parasympathetic system, and it increases your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala connectivity. And it allows this to be strengthened so that you can be emotionally regulated. Next is cognitive reappraisal. So it strengthens the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex by reframing negative thoughts. And that is what I am doing right now. I am telling myself that it is August. School is almost starting. People have been gone for the summer. There isn't a holiday anchoring people. Football doesn't start. There aren't any sports championships. And so people don't know what to do in the month of August because their programmers haven't programmed them to do anything. And so the idle mind is the amygdala's workshop, and it just keeps looking for sensations. And so as I am having to read and delete and all of that, which I normally wouldn't have to do as much if it were not August, as I'm talking about a very new subject for myself, I'm having to say it's August and this is what people are doing. It's August and the toddlers are running the brain. That's what I'm having to do because people aren't even aware that this is what's actually taking place. So as the person that teaches you how to use your brain and how it functions, I now have to strengthen my prefrontal cortex in this time because my amygdala, my right amygdala, wants to pop off. The stand-up comic in me wants to go ham, and it's a great strengthening exercise for me in this moment to say, that's not what we're getting ready to do. Stay on track. Okay, so I'm strengthening right now in this moment the connection, and I am regulating my emotions so that the prefrontal cortex stays in command of the right amygdala. Okay, so then you have so I'm reframing my thoughts to say August is the month with no holidays, and so this is what people do. Next is cognitive reappraisal. Oh, I said that. Okay. Third is vagus nerve stimulation, and so it improves your emotional resilience and psychological calm via cold exposure. You can hum, you can walk, you can do a myriad of things. in order to calm down the vagus nerve so that it's like, okay, I'm calm, I'm peaceful. Get back to center or core if we were in yoga class. And then name the emotion. And so what you're going to do by naming the emotion, it activates the ventromedial prefrontal cortex and it reduces the amygdala's response. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? And what am I going to do about this feeling that I have in the prefrontal cortex? I'm not going to handle it down here in the temporal lobe with my amygdala and my limbic system. I'm going to handle it in the region of the brain that is responsible for handling day-to-day problems and day-to-day decision makings and problem solving, cognition. All of that is taking place here. So I'm going to allow my prefrontal cortex to take care of that. Next is gratitude writing. Always enhances positive emotion circuits and promotes neuroplasticity. Write down 3 things that you're grateful for. Spend 10 to 15 seconds visualizing it, and then just say, this is what I'm grateful for. As I mentioned yesterday, gratitude is the opposite of envy. So you don't say, I'm grateful that I have a car because I could be walking. You say, I'm grateful for the car that I have, even though a G-Wagon just drove past me. Next is sleep and recovery. So sleep and recovery supports emotion regulation and your brain structures for the prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, and the hippocampus. And so what happens is, don't disrupt your sleep pattern. Adenosine is the natural hormone neurotransmitter in your body. When it's low, you're awake. When it's high, it's time to go to sleep. So don't give yourself caffeine when you're sleepy, and then when you're not sleepy, don't take a sleeping aid, because you are deregulating the natural system in your body that will help you sleep and recover. Okay, that's great that you're going to do that. Meditate in August. Mindful August is what you can call it. All right, movement and exercise. Movement boosts dopamine, serotonin, and your BDNF for your emotional balance. And what did I do with my? I didn't write that down. Okay. Yes. So you're getting a boost, and it's allowing you to be able to stay regulated. So if you've ever seen anybody say, oh, you're stressed, go exercise. Oh, you're stressed, go exercise. The reason for that is the neurotransmitters that are taking place, plus it's strengthening the prefrontal cortex. And the more you challenge, the more new neurons are created in the hippocampus. And it's just this nice neuroplastic loop that keeps continually taking place. And now you have the heart rate variability training. And so that builds self-regulation through improved autonomic control. And so what happens is, when you're exercising, you don't want to do a bunch of high intensity exercises or low intensity exercises. You want to do a combination of both, and you want to incorporate rest. Now, before you have any regimen of exercise whatsoever, please consult your primary care physician. I have a doctorate in education. I am not a medical doctor, so check with them. And they will tell you, based upon your age, height, weight, and everything else, what you need to be doing from a high intensity perspective and a low intensity perspective. And so there are days when I do calisthenics, there are days when I do a little bit of weight training and resistance bands, and there are days when I just stretch, because I am ensuring that that variability and that training is there to regulate my system. Too much, so you see all those people that are so bulked up, and then you put them in a Pilates class and they can't stretch, or you put all the people from the Pilates class in the weight room and they can't lift shit up. You have to have a regulated training program for your heart, your mind, your body, your spirit, your soul. Next is mirror work or self-compassion. So the insula, you enhance the insula by activating emotional integration. It's okay to feel your feelings, okay? Feel all of them, but do something about it. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? And what am I getting ready to do about it? Do not just, I'm just so emotional. I'm just all in my feelings. I'm all over the place. No, you're not. Take each feeling one at a time and understand what's happening and have a strategy for it. I have no information on cortisol levels and skin conditions that are linked. Okay, cortisol comes from the amygdala, the temporal lobe. And what happens is it is released. It is a stress hormone that is released through synaptic connections, and it enters into the frontal lobe, prefrontal cortex, cuts off. Basically, brain fog is what it creates, because the amygdala and the limbic system are in fight, flight, freeze, or appease mode, and it wants to seek safety and comfort. So if you are having cortisol that is being released in your brain, you need to regulate, which is what this live is about, your emotional system. Not quite sure where skin conditions came from. I don't have any information that says that those two are linked. I do know that when cortisol is released, you don't have access to your prefrontal cortex. Okay, and finally, cold showers or face dunks. This strengthens your vagal tone and stress recovery. And so again, at the end of your nice hot shower, go ahead and do 30 seconds of cold just to get you nice and strong, or you can do your face in cold water as well. And here's a neuroscience insight. Its emotional regulation improves the prefrontal cortex. It learns to coach the amygdala. This is in charge of this. The prefrontal cortex is in charge of the temporal lobe and specifically the amygdala when it comes to emotional regulation. You do not have the quarterback standing on the sideline and the coach out on the field throwing the ball during the game. It is in the reverse. The coach is in charge of the game. The coach is in charge of everybody moving around. Okay, so the prefrontal cortex needs to be in charge of the amygdala, or you are going to have emotional deregulation, which is what we saw in the middle of the live with the people with the hijacked amygdalas coming, looking for conformity bias and negativity bias and needing their manufactured external stimuli from me, which is dopamine, which they ended up getting from each other, and that's why they were bonding. So yeah. So here is the daily 5-minute training routine. It is 1 minute of mindful breathing, inhale and exhaling. You can choose to do box breathing. You could do the 4-6-8 method, whichever breath work works best for you. Then 1 minute, you're going to write down how you feel, plus one thing you're grateful for. 1 minute to reframe a current frustration. And mine is, when will they come where I will be able to go live and there will be enough adults in the world that know how their brain functions and that they can function properly so that we can grow forward and stay and get the fuck out of this negativity bias, hundreds of thousands of year doom loop, basal ganglia induced habit forming day after day after day after day. Next is a 30-second splash of cold water on your face or 30 seconds at the end of your shower, and then a 2-minute brisk walk or stretch. So you could do some yoga stretches for 2 minutes, and this is what you will begin daily to regulate your emotions. And so let me turn this around, see if it does it. So on the left bottom is the 5-minute brain training technique. And when this live is over, it will process. And if you want to come back and take a screenshot, these are all the graphics and the information that I covered on the live today. What questions do you have about emotional regulation before I move on to the brain bit? If there are no questions, type no questions, and we will move on to the brain bit and close out the live for today. All right. Today's brain bit is about physical fitness, and it is brain bit or physical exercise. So it is concise, neuroscience backed, and designed for quick impact. That's what it is. No, you don't have to take a cold shower. You can just take a shower at the temperature that you normally take, and in the last 30 seconds of the shower, you literally just turn the cold water on for 30 seconds. Or you can put your face in cold water. You can splash cold water in your face. You can put your face in cold water to have the same effect. But no, you don't need to take an entire cold shower. There are people who do, but that's not the purpose of the exercise, because you just want to regulate the emotions. So you want to get the emotions used to it's cold. Just long enough so you sit there in cold for the amygdala to say it's cold. Okay, it's not that cold. It's just cold. And then it goes away over time. So the brain fact is physical exercise boosts brain function by increasing neurogenesis. So physical exercise increases your brain function by increasing your neurogenesis, which is the creation of new neurons. And it enhances synaptic plasticity. And so synapses is two neurons meeting together, firing and wiring, connecting, And now there is this transmission of neurotransmitters, and now they're connected. That creates a neural pathway. The more you do it, the stronger it strengthens itself, and that's why the brain is considered to be plastic. And also, physical activity improves blood flow from the prefrontal cortex to the prefrontal cortex. So your brain's command center for focus, decision making, and self-control. So when you are exercising, it's not just so you could be snatched and let them know and compete in these physical competitions. You're actually strengthening the blood to your prefrontal cortex so it can function better. So you will have better focus, better decision making, and better self-control. You're going to regulate your emotions. So when you find yourself not wanting to exercise, and you can do an experiment. Think about the people in your life that you interact with on a daily basis. The people who are not physically fit are also not emotionally fit. They are some of the most emotionally deregulated people you know. Why? Because the amygdala is running the show. There is no connectivity to the prefrontal cortex, and it is not being strengthened. So blood is not getting to the prefrontal cortex. And so they are not focused. They can't make good decisions, and they lack a bunch of self-control. And we saw that with the middle of the live with those people there. Guarantee you those people don't work out on the regular basis. So you're not just getting buffed. You're not just getting snatched. You are literally strengthening your brain every time you do high intensity, low intensity, and stretching. It's for your brain. It is the benefits of your body and your motor skills, but it's for your brain. Neuroscience insights. Just 20 minutes of aerobic movement, like walking, cycling, or dancing, increases your BDNF, and that's your brain-derived neurotropic factor. And that's the protein that acts like miracle grow for your brain. Now, it enhances your memory, your learning, and your emotional regulation. Now, people have products. Before you ask me about it, I've not used any of the BDNF products. I don't know if they work. I am a person, the only thing I take is protein, and that's it. And some vitamins. When you start saying, and I see it in Sprouts and Whole Foods, in the health section, the vitamin section, this is going to increase your BDNF. This is going to increase it. But it's not going to give you the physical muscles. It's not going to give you the mental connectivity that it takes when you are lifting a weight. And I got to use my Ensure. Do you know how many synaptic connections it takes for you to pick this Ensure up and do this? And how there's thousands of connections for you to do this. And so you are strengthening the connections to do this in several regions of your brain, but you are also creating blood flow and strengthening your prefrontal cortex. So if you just take the BDNF, you missed out on all of these connections from squatting, from dancing, and everything else to just go ahead and skip it. So unaccountable people are always finding the fucking shortcut. But yeah, so yep, your brain is functioning, but now your body ain't functioning. So it's a total package. It's a total workout. Plus, every time you actually challenge yourself in learning how to do something, you create new neurons in the hippocampus. And if you sustain it over time, now if you keep doing it over time, you create that neural pathway. And the more challenging the situation, the more new neurons are created in the hippocampus, and the more neuroplasticity and neural pathways you're creating. So don't just take the BDNF strengthener and miss out on the workout, because now you are failing and you're not connecting those 86 billion neurons, which can create 860 trillion synaptic connections. So don't take the pill and skip the workout. Hopefully I've demonstrated the importance of doing all of it and not just going, my BDNF, yep, I'm about to be a genius. I'm about to be coding in 20 minutes. No, you're not. No, you're not. And consult your doctor before you add anything new to your diet. So it's like miracle grow for your brain. It's natural miracle grow. And the one thing that unaccountable people do, because they love capitalism and they like to make a dollar, is they always want to tell you it has to come from the outside. And so I'll use this as an example. What happens is you are sleepy. I told you before, adenosine, natural in your body. If you're awake, adenosine is low. And throughout your day, you start to do more. So the adenosine increases. And around about 2 p.m., you get a little sleepy. And what has the world told you to do? The world has told you to go grab an energy drink or some caffeine. But what the world didn't tell you to do was to take a power nap. It works in elementary school. Why the hell it don't work now? Right? It still works. So if you take that quick power nap, you're going to have the boost to go to sleep. But if you don't, now you're going to be taking an Ambien. And so what unaccountable people have you doing is believing that your body can't produce what it needs on its own, and you need this external stimuli, this $30, $40 supplements that you got to get every doggone 3 days, 2 months, or whatever. So they're like, oh, I got to go get my BDNF. Oh, I got to go get this. I got to get my magnesium. I got to go get this. When if you just learn how the brain functions and you do the things to make it stronger, you will never, ever, ever, ever have to go and purchase these other things that the brain does automatically. Okay? Now, the brain boost benefits is that it increases your working memory. And your working memory, I see what you said, Lola. It increases your working memory capacity. Now, you might have heard that your working memory is temporary. It is, but what it's doing is temporary. It's not temporary because it's part of the executive function of your brain. And so what happens is your working memory is working dozens, if not hundreds of times an hour for every hour that you're awake. So as a result of that, you need your working memory. And by regulating your emotional system and physically working out, you're going to increase your working memory. It regulates dopamine and serotonin for better mood and empowerment. It strengthens the executive function like planning and impulse control. It reduces the cortisol, lowering your stress and mental fatigue. And it enhances your neuroplasticity, keeping the brain adaptable and sharp. So try this. Start your day with 5 or 10 minutes of moving, jumping jacks, brisk walking, light stretching. Your brain will thank you with clarity and creativity. You don't need a gym membership. Do it at your house. I work out in my bedroom. I actually created a video the other day to show people what I do. I do light weights and calisthenics and resistance bands. So you don't have to go and buy a bunch of shit, go get a home gym or anything else. You and your body is enough to create the physical fitness that you need to do every day to increase your brain cognition. Okay, so the 2 questions are, what did you learn today and what did you learn about yourself? And a third question is, what did you learn about emotional regulation? So answer that third question, Nola and Lola, as I read your responses. What did you learn about emotional regulation specifically? All right. Lola said, I learned several ways to deregulate my amygdala and stay calmer to reach my frontal cortex to make better decisions. Gratitude, rest, and exercise, mindful breathing, meditation, and what am I feeling? Nola said, I learned for myself that writing down what I am grateful for can regulate my emotions. Nola also said, I learned the executive function is in charge of regulating the emotions of the amygdala. So just an overall, what I'm asking is an overall summation of emotional regulation. So if you had to have this conversation with someone, and you may need to, how would you explain what emotional regulation is to that person? Because that's the issue that we have with the almost 6 billion adults in the world. The issue is this. People don't know how to regulate their emotions, and we are on the receiving end of everybody's deregulated emotions. Lola said, why am I feeling it? What am I going to do about it? Cold water controls emotions. Don't let the feeling make you feel like it, and it's the end of the world. Learned what shout. Shalt. S-H-A-L-T. So it's sleepy, hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. Shout. Sleepy, hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. That's what it is. And that's from 12-step programs. Some people say halt, hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. But shout is sleepy. Nola said emotional regulation is regulating your feelings to be balanced. That's correct. That is correct. Okay. My pleasure, Sean. Okay, so in summary, here's what I will say, ladies and gentlemen. I am a work in progress. Always, constantly improving everything that I am doing. And so while I would like to not address people on the lives, that is my intention going forward. There are times that I will need to address those people, especially if it is part of the teaching. So your takeaway today, as you've had many takeaways, is that people shout. That's correct. S-H-A-L-T. Yes, ma'am. Sleepy, hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. those will cause you to be emotionally deregulated. That's what's happening. So what's taking place is, what you saw, just so I can bring it home to make sure that you understood that, is that people are emotionally deregulated. And if you are attempting to have a conversation with a dysfunctional, deregulated, emotional person, stop. If there's any way to end the conversation, the interaction, leave, because it's not going to work. And if you can't, you can say, hey, let's take a time out and let's come back. Let's take a time out. This is getting too heated. This is too emotional. And you go write down what's taking place. I'm going to go write down what's taking place, and let's come back. Let's just read off our paper. And let's do that, because what you then have to do is you have to use your prefrontal cortex to calm down the whole situation, because it can get very animated. And then that pausing, and when you tell people to go write down what's happening, you have now said prefrontal cortex take over. Their prefrontal cortex needs to take over their brain. So then they can process what's actually taking place. Now, because it's not something that they will do consistently, that fire and wire, that's not going to create the neural pathway. They themselves on their own would have to continue to do that. But in that moment, you are being a thermostat, not a thermometer. You're handling conflict when it occurs. And that's what I did. And they continue to keep talking. So at that point, I have the ability to remove them as they are being disruptive to the learning environment. And so now they must go away. And they no longer have access to neuroprobability or real leadership. And that's on them, because it couldn't listen to wise counsel. But it is not your responsibility to be responsible for other people's emotions. And external anxiety is why we feel the way we feel all day long, because we are feeling everybody else's feelings. And I've told my daughter numerous times, those are your feelings. I'm not feeling your feelings. So for example, if she is hungry, and that's that's the H in shout, and she starts being angry too, so hangry, and now she's fussing and snapping and everything else because she's hungry, I'm going to say, you're hungry and you need to eat. I'm not hungry, so I'm not going to eat. If I'm sleepy and I start snapping at her, she can say, you're sleepy. Go to sleep. Your adenosine is up. Go to sleep, because you are now giving me external anxiety. And what happens when both of us are using our prefrontal cortex is we're both real leaders. We understand what's taking place and we speak the same language. But when you are dealing on average with all of these people who don't know how to use their brain, it's like talking to a toddler. So you have to start speaking toddler. You don't speak amygdala, but you have to talk at a lower level for them to understand this is what's taking place. And if they still can't understand it, you can remove yourself. If not, calm the situation down as best as you can, get done what you need to get done, and then exit stage left. But this is on them. Those people that were typing back and forth, they are the ones with the dysfunctional brain system. They are the ones with the strong amygdalas and the weak prefrontal cortex, and that is not my problem. That is not my problem. My mission in life is to teach adults 18 and above globally how to use their brain so that it can function as it was designed, and so that they can learn how to become their personal best. And again, what you will find is that because it is August, people are losing their damn minds because their programmers haven't told them what to do for the month. And other than back to school, they don't know what to do until Labor Day. I mean, that's why Spirit Halloween is out now with Halloween stuff. So people can start focusing on Halloween, because people don't know what to do in August. And again, their issue, not yours. They don't know what to do for the rest of the month. So just watch. They don't know what to put on the news. They don't know what to put on television. They don't know what to put on the radio. Nobody knows what to do in the month of August, because there's no holiday in America in the month of August. It's insane, but that's what's taking place. And so many, I agree, Michael. I am here live every single day at 5:30 a.m. I have hundreds of lives. I've been live on YouTube since January 19th, but today is day 640 for me being live consecutively. I agree. And that's why I wake up every day in spite of unaccountable people being unaccountable with their amygdala. And yeah, let me show y'all. We're calling Nola, and I just thought about this yesterday. So this is the size for the new viewers. This is the size of your amygdala. It's an almond. It's shaped like an almond and weighs a couple grams. So your brain is 2 to 3 pounds. Are you going to let this little bitty tiny little small little thing take over. And Nola, what did we say we were going to call this? Because I forgot, it's escaping me because of doggone perimenopause. And it's not even a matter of functioning on the wrong frequency. They got this little bitty thing sitting right here trying to run this whole thing right here because of negativity bias. So as soon as they understand that the prefrontal cortex is in charge and they make that connection, then they can start to understand how to use their brain. But it's this size. I think we called it amygdala. Yes, amygdamon. That's what we called it. So it's amygdamon. That's what it is. Amygdala and the almond put together. Amygdalmond. So this is what's running your brain. Most people. See, when they say pea brain, they actually meant almond brain. You don't want that to happen. You want to use your 86 billion neurons. Okay? So it's an almond brain is what's actually happening. Don't let that occur. So I'm here every day doing this very lifelong pursuit work. God willing, I'll be here another 40 years. It looked like that's how long it's going to take for this to actually take place and occur. I understand. Roger that. It is what it is. But I will be back. Thank you for your time today and investing in your neural pathways today. Fire and wire is what happens when you learn how to use this amazing organ. You become an amazing human being and nobody can stop you at all. It's impossible. You just outthink them, outwit them, out prefrontal cortex them, because that small little amygdala only got a little bit of functions. Just think of a toddler, 3-year-old, 5-year-old that hasn't started kindergarten yet, somebody in pre-K. You can outwit them every day. You can. If you start to see people like that, my pleasure. Thank you for having a seat on my platform. Okay, so I will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, safe space, different brain t-shirt. You all go off and have a brain-tastic day. Take care. Okay, welcome, Scorpion Playhouse. And hello from the UK. Awesome. I will be back tomorrow, 5:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You all go off and have a wonderful Wednesday. Take care.